We have been talking about plotting and pantsing and these two different styles of writing. We've been talking about how neither one is better or worse than the other, but today I want to talk about what I think is the best style of writing. I like to call it gardening, and it's a mix between plotting and pantsing. As I mentioned in the first video this week, I started as an absolute pantser. And in fact, plotting has always been a challenge for me. But the longer I'm a writer, the more I've started to realize that it's okay to mix styles. I don't have to commit to one and move to an extreme. Instead, I can take what's good from each style of writing to help myself become a better, more well-rounded writer. And I like to use gardening as my analogy. You see, gardens are planned spaces. Gardens don't exist in the wild. Gardens only exist where there's intentionality, and that's the plotting side. At the same time, any gardener worth their salt is going to tell you that they don't grow plants. All they do is prepare the conditions in which plants can grow. They make the garden, and then the plants grow however they're going to grow. And that's the pantsing side. So today I want to break down for you how I think about writing novels as a gardener. Sometimes I'll also refer to this as the cultivation of novels. The first step in this process of gardening is planting ideas. Just like a gardener will plant seeds, there are a couple of things you want to do before you just throw the seeds in the ground and see if they grow or not. The first is that you want to pick the right seeds. You want to pick the right ideas. See, not all ideas are created equal. Sometimes you need to sort through them to pick the ones that have the best chance of growing into the story that you want to tell. A good gardener won't just throw them in the ground. Instead, they'll start preparing their soil. I like to think of preparing our soil as paying attention to the environment and our own mental frame of reference before we start writing. You might not think about this a lot, but your physical space and your mental space both play a part in how your stories develop. And so being cognizant of that, I'm not saying that you have to artificially change your environment or artificially change your state of mind. No, sometimes novels need different states of mind. Sometimes they need different environments. If you take the same writer with the same idea, you're going to get very different stories if they write it in the middle of a bustling city or out in the wilderness in a cabin. Their environment is going to shape the story that they're telling. So I like to think of preparing our soil as just being aware of what's around us. And then the second piece in preparing our ideas is understanding what sort of fertilizer we are feeding them. A good gardener is going to understand that depending on the time of year, depending on the kind of plant, depending on the location of the garden, they're going to need different kinds of fertilizer to ensure that their plants grow to their maximum capacity. And our ideas are like that too. The sorts of content that you are consuming will also influence the way you write. And so the types of books you're reading, the types of conversations you're having, the people you're allowing to speak into your life, all of these things play a part in how your ideas grow, how your novels turn out. So just like a gardener is going to pay attention to their soil, they're going to pay attention to the fertilizer. As novelists, we need to do the same thing. We need to understand the context in which we're writing, and we need to understand what we are consuming and how it will then affect our writing. And then after we've planted our ideas, we need to grow them. And this is where the majority of the work of writing a novel comes in. We've already planned out roughly how we want our garden to look. We at least have a conception of it. We've prepared our soil, we've picked our fertilizer, and planted our idea. And now it's a matter of watering it and waiting for it to grow. Watering for me is understanding how much structure I need to be giving this idea as it's growing. Because any good gardener knows that too much water will kill a plant, just as not enough water will kill the plant. We don't want to dry our story out, and we also don't want to drown it. But after you've watered, you really just need to let it grow. You need to let it develop however it's going to develop. So it's this tension between the structure of plotting and the free exploration of pantsing where ideas grow optimally. But there's a final step that I think is really important, and that is pruning. The removal of ideas that don't work. Just as a plant needs to be deadheaded, that means you're removing the dead flowers so that the plant is not continuing to put energy and effort into them. It's important to pull bad ideas out of our stories. Sometimes we have an idea that we think is fantastic, and then it just dies. It leads to a dead end. And if we continue to push our energy and effort and our focus into it, our story is not going to grow into the magnificent flower that it could be. I hope you can see how I'm taking plotting and pantsing and mixing them together with this method. At the end of the day, just like in gardening, this process of writing isn't about adhering to one specific methodology. Instead, it's about becoming better at it. And if you're naturally a pantser, then there are definitely things that plotters do that will improve your craft. They might be difficult, but they will improve your craft. And the opposite holds just as true. If you are a hardcore plotter, then you might find that there are aspects of pantsing that really enhance your stories. No matter what, our goal should always be to get better. To ask that one question, what is one thing that I can do to improve in my writing? Let me know down in the comments below. Are you a plotter or a pantser? And what technique or trick are you going to take from the other style in order to improve your own writing? I hope you've enjoyed this. My name is Seth. I'm a full-time fantasy author. I've written 26 books, published most of them, and I make these videos because there are a lot of authors who aren't making it out there, and I don't want you to be one of them.